Our next game is Ganso Saiyuuki Super Monkey Daibouken, which was nominated by Nick Quante on iTunes, who gave us a 5-star review and put this game in it, which means we had to play it, you bastard.
Nick, you're abusing the system already. We
need those 5-star reviews, people. Right. We are desperate, hungry, attention whores.
I mean, look at what we do for them. This is unbelievable.
But did we really have to go here right away? I mean, come on.
I want to point out, although I don't know whether one of these people is Mr. Nick Quanti, but this was also nominated by @BonusLizard, one of our favorite Twitter handles.
Well, I do really like that name.
Our new favorite Twitter handle, @LordOfButt. Which is interesting to me because you think there'd be multiple butts you would be lord of, but I guess... It's
butt
just the
as
one
in, like,
butt.
the concept, like the platonic perfect butt.
I don't rule all butts.
I really do feel that butts should be judged on quality over quantity. But
this butt,
depends.
I am the lord of.
It's like
I'm so glad you guys are talking about butt in the context of this game.
Exactly. Word. It's not a coincidence.
So, right. Super Monkey Daibouken, developed by VAP Inc., as far as we know. And published by, it was probably just developed by like one or two guys who like set up some kind of
at least
company
one.
that sounded similar. Yeah. And published by VAP Inc., which I believe was what was it? It was not a game publisher.
No. So it was a television production company, is the umbrella over VAP Inc. I don't know if VAP Inc. is the name of the parent company, but they mostly did television.
It's kind of like having a game being published nowadays. It'd be like having a game published by, say, like Viacom. I would say
like it's not necessarily dissimilar from Vic Tokai because they were a television.
Yeah, and you have like FTI. You did a ton of things.
Victor Musical Industries also published some games like Legendary Acts.
Japanese companies and enterprises are very like kind of infamous for just sort of grabbing every industry that they can and just being like, all right, we'll just do some of this, we'll do some of that.
Yes, since
Sony
video
makes more money selling insurance than video game stuff.
Yeah,
less we get.
Was this the one that on Crontendo he said it was a public utility company or something like that?
Yeah. Dr. Sparkle of Crontendo gave this game a special intro where he really slowed down and backmasked the theme and gave it negative visuals to indicate how truly wretched this pile of fetid hell is.
It was this pile of fetid hell mass, I guess.
Yeah, let's go.
Was released on November 21st, 1986 in Japan, which I guess means it postdates the original Dragon Quest, right?
Yeah.
I believe it's almost exactly 6 months. I think it's a short period of time.
Which, since it took about 6 weeks to develop it, actually probably much less than that.
It does feel like someone at VAP Inc. must have just been like, wow, look at this Dragon, super popular, and then just threw it at like the only programmer they had at VAP was someone who's like was doing the programming at the team. And there's make a game.
I would bet money that VAP Inc. did not hire anybody to create a programming department and hire somebody to make a game. What they did was they found somebody who said they could make them a game for very, very cheap. And they said, we'll publish whatever garbage you put out. And what they did is probably building off of the popularity of the Dragon Ball manga, which I believe was just getting started about this time. I might be wrong about that, but I'm not willing to check my facts.
They don't even go that deep. Like, it's all it is just culling from Journey to the West.
Right. It's
1,500 years old. Off Journey to the West.
Well,
Capcom sounds
okay, but let's point something out here. They love it, but it was like basically if you remember in like the 90s, early 2000s, where every time a new Disney movie would come out, you'd see like in the supermarket and like the checkout aisles, there'd be VHS tapes that would be like, The Little Mermaid or something, but it would be some really ugly ass animation or cover, a completely generic version,
like the Underwater Princess or something.
No, they call it The Little Mermaid because that is the name of a Hans Christian Andersen story. It's public domain.
Aren't you underestimating Disney? Because on a lot of those, they have to call it like Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, because otherwise Disney
they might on the thing, but you know, it's they can I don't know. There might have been minor differences, but the point is, Dragon Ball popular, Journey to the West public domain. So you could put something out and kids would buy it, either because you tricked them into buying it or because they just wanted this was a popular thing and you could do it for nothing. And that is the ethos of this entire game.
Sure is.
So let's talk about Journey to the West as much as I'm willing to. So start the timer, 30 seconds.
All right.
No, I mean, basically it's a classic novel that is about the Monkey King's journey from is on a pilgrimage from some part
basically
of China into
across
India,
China to
right?
India.
Right, and then they take it over and suppress their civil. No, I'm just and the interesting thing about this game is that probably the most impressive, or perhaps the only impressive thing about the game, is that it does feature a huge map that does roughly correlate to a map of China, and it seems like the basic physical features of China are present, even though they make no difference into the gameplay.
Well, it makes no sense.
There's
when you try and play
nothing.
it.
They would have been better off marketing this as an Atlas program instead of an actual game.
There's nothing to do, though. It's just like a big long stretch of nothing.
If I were a betting man, and my dire finances say that I am, I would bet that they did the map first and came up with the gameplay last.
Yeah.
Because you do a lot of... Well, let's talk about all the... I mean, rather than really explain this game...
This game doesn't bother to explain itself.
Does not bother to explain itself. But it is famous in Japan as the official worst, quasi-official worst Famicom game ever made.
Yeah.
It is the quintessential kusoge, or...
shit game. Basically.
Yeah, shit game or crappy game or whatever you want.
That's like the literal translation.
Yeah, I think Jeff wanted to take
you have to choose your scatological term.
Yeah.
Because there is no real obscenity in the Japanese language, so you could call it poop game and it would be identical. But it is kind of like it kind of transcends badness to become good again in their eyes. There's a famous sequence that they did in one season of Game Center CX, where I think this is the one where Arno solicits tips from the audience or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I forget what season this was, like the 5th or 6th or whatever. But he got a request from one of his friends in comedy to beat Super Monkey Daibouken because he kept insisting that he had to see the ending, and. Spoilers, it's a real non-ending. It's one of those congratulation type deals. So
right, but after
you
suffer through the entire game, that's what makes the ending that much more of a kick in the balls.
Yeah,
because there is no real ending. So you did all that for nothing. But the idea was that this game is famous and anti-popular enough that he could just call up people who would put in their phone number or something. And give it to the production company, and then he would just call up random numbers and ask strangers what to do next. And he would tell them where he is in the game, and they would tell him what to do, because that many people had played the game. And I'm willing. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of them played the game as kids, but I think it's more like kind of one of those things you just have to. We don't really have this for NES games.
I really kind of dig the reverence Japan has for crappy games. No one in America gives half a crap about Spelunker, but they love it. They love Spelunker.
Right.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, it's like baseball announcers will look at a guy who's beaten up and they'd be like, oh, he's got the constitution of the Spelunker dude. And everyone's like, he's right.
There's one particular player, I don't know who he was, but he was just famous for getting injured all the time. And so they would liken him to the Spelunker guy.
So it amuses me that they love this crappy game that no one in this country, or probably any other country, would give the time of day ever again.
Well, every other country was spared the release of this title. It's Japanese only. Not that matters, because there's 8 lines of text.
The closest thing I could compare it to in North America would be Street Fighter 2010 or whatever it was called.
You made a better comparison the other day, and you said it was more like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
Now that game does suck. Street Fighter 2010 isn't bad once you work with it enough.
It's not bad, but a lot of people, it came out when everybody wanted to play a Street Fighter game.
It's
and
really
they played
weird
it.
in the context it was released.
But it's like the things about Teenage Mutant Ninja, like everyone knows, like, oh yeah, like Raphael's weapon is terrible. It's got horrible range, or you can just stab down through the floor with a bow, or there's that one bad jump, or swimming through the seaweed is hard. Like things like
comparison is not really apt because, first of all, as frustratingly difficult as Ninja Turtles, the first Ninja Turtles game is, it's not a bad game so much as it is kind of a sloppy good game.
I would compare a Super Monkey Daibouken more like some, like, I don't know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
I guess so. But nobody really has any affection for that game. I just don't think we have the same kind of culture. There's kind of a.
Well, I mean, look, if you want to go with NES games, you won't get it. But let's be sure. I don't like to make this comparison, but you're gonna look at something like Big Rigs. Like that's as close as you're gonna get, like in terms of just today. This is a game that everyone knows. Yeah. We all know it, and we also know it's complete garbage. No one plays it for fun, but. I mean,
it's kind of a weird. Irony doesn't translate very well across.
Right. Like the thing that, like, I was thinking, like maybe Desert Bus, but Desert Bus was made knowing what it is. Like, I don't know if Big Rigs was.
I don't know. Like, you could say, like, I guess.
Big Rigs is a spiritual cheap cash grab that's completely incompetent, and I think we agree that this SMD is that. Like, it is a. Let's try and make some money with video games and not spend any.
Let's talk a little bit more about how. All the things this game does wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't NES Famicom Sin numero uno. It maps attack to A and jump to B. Mm-hmm. Am I right about that? I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah. So
that's a big problem.
Sin Challenger does too, but at least Challenger has some things going for it.
Right. I mean, but this is a cardinal sin. Of NES games. Never ever do. You never want to see that. But on top of that, it has a lot of invisible goal points where in order to get to another part of the map, you have to usually find some kind of invisible square on the map, on the part of the map you're on.
I do want to step in and say it's not as insane as it sounds. Usually, and this is probably because I've played a lot of terrible games that are like this. Usually there's an inferred spot, like the map will sort of shape around an area, implying that it's, different as a spot, even though it's invisible and it shouldn't be.
Right.
It's not like there's not like a random tile on a 200 tile grid. There's like a weird sort of outcropping, and then you've got to go in that outcropping.
That's particularly true of the first few.
They kind of hint at it.
Okay, so on top of this, a lot of the game just aimless wandering, looking for some kind of very slow walking. It could possibly take.
The game's speed is my most hated part.
I don't even know what your goal in this game is because it certainly doesn't tell you anywhere.
India.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking honestly about how low I'd rank this, and it's like. If you think about video games in terms of like how they actually function, it's like basically there are video game problems, like classical, I'm trying to accomplish something, and you can look at a screen and be like, okay, I'm on the bottom of the screen, I need to get to the top, there's obstacles. Super Monkey Daibouken does not really tell you what to do, but on the other hand, if you are familiar with Journey to the West and you understand how cardinal directions work, you could infer, to use the word
India is underneath China, so
so
you have to get to that part of the map.
So you just keep walking left,
but you don't get
you can go left.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't get a map in the game that.
No, you don't. You're just supposed to know where Journey to the West starts, and then kind of figure out.
Sort of teleport to other squares of the map.
Right.
Like you start out on an island.
My assumption is that it does vaguely follow the actual directions that happen in Journey to the West. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't read it, but
as far as I know, I mean, maybe I don't know how literate the people who made this game were, but
it does give you like very, very occasionally because you get to walk into towns sometimes or like houses. There's like it's the only point of the map that you can see anything, so you run right into those, and there'll be either a girl or an old man, and they'll say like a single line of dialogue. Usually it's useless, like "Welcome to Q." Thanks. That's really helpful. But sometimes they'll say, "You have to go north."
Go north.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And
Wow.
if you go north, you're actually supposed to have gone south, I think, in that one. But that's not the point. The point is it tries to give you a direction.
Right. It tells you something that, I mean, it's unclear. There's not that much. I don't think there's that much to translate in the game, but it has recently been fan translated.
It's not
within
even
the last
accurate.
year.
I really think they just threw it through a machine because it's not even accurate to what it's supposed to say.
Great.
So yeah, we don't even know our ranking at this point. But before we get to ranking it, I think there's one other detail we have to talk about, which is that this is one of those games where somebody has combed through the source code,
boy, I can't
found
wait.
messages from the original developer.
Yeah.
So buried within the graphics of this game is a nice little attribution to one of the developers, one of the programmers, one Mr. Nakajima Kaoru, I think. Kaoru. Yeah. Which it also gives the year he was born, how old he was while he was developing it, and it informs us that he was from Toyokawa City in Aichi Prefecture. But it also says something else, which I feel like the translations of this kind of are suspect.
I
basically it includes,
let's call it a personal ad,
a declaration of his sexual interests.
They're pretty vanilla. Nothing like really like perverse.
No, I mean it's more like it's the kind of thing that you like.
It's the kind of thing he put in like because he thought no one was going to play this game and no one was going to look in the source code.
Well, everybody knew no one was going to look in the source, but he puts it in there, and it's basically like this is like the kind of thing like the heavy like we're all men here, so we probably don't experience this much, but I bet our female listeners know a little bit more about the kind of person who would say something like this, which is like
not a very good person.
Like the kind of person that says like basically is obsessed with cunnilingus.
Yeah. The language that's used here would have been kind of shocking had it not been for literally the last 48 hours of the American news cycle.
That's true. When we're recording this, it's kind of like the seal has been broken. So one translation is, I want to lick some pussy. I want a perverted miss. I like vagina and the clitoris, which rhymes. I don't think that's likely to be the case in Japanese. I'm looking at it's, because it's written out in kana, so I could technically read this, but I'm not going to.
I think the point we can make here is that people enjoyed working on this game just as much as we've enjoyed playing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I think that this note is kind of fascinating as people have been spending a good decent amount of time for the last decade trying to archive and document Famicom development and NES development and the people who made these games. And you wind up with stuff like, Nico's Papa. It's hard, Shigeru Miyamoto is a public-facing figure. He is also unique, and there are probably tens of thousands of people, on the aggregate who worked on games for the Famicom or the NES over the years, and we don't know who they are or where they were or what they liked. And here's someone whose name is now etched in the very fabric of shitty video game history.
He's definitely not the only one.
No, he's not. But
he's also not the only one to put in a almost like grade school level sexuality kind of message in there.
Right.
So, I mean, there's actually, I can't remember which one it is. It might be one of the Pachicom games or something. It's some other turd blossom of a game. But it has it actually talks about it includes some really derogatory comments about a female coworker.
Yeah,
that one's a lot worse because that one's
it's talking about someone else, and it's talking about
it's accessible in game.
I have another example.
Yeah,
does anyone remember that one Tetris game in Nintendo 64? Because that guy really went off on that one. It was an American guy this time.
Tetrasphere or
I think it was the new Tetris. I think it was called.
I did
yeah.
Topic on our. We didn't even finish talking about SMD before we went into perverted.
We finished.
Can you blame us?
Well,
So
we
the
didn't
real
talk
question,
about how
how
the
much-
You didn't even
Sorry.
talk. This game has combat, and we didn't even
Yeah,
mention
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Combat.
Oh yeah, so it plays about like a like the worst Newgrounds Flash game you can find.
you're trying
That's
to
about how
hit
it controls.
enemies with your stick. That's all I can gather out of it. I couldn't tell you what the
By-
strategy is to all
By
this.
pressing the
Just
A button.
keep running, keep mashing, and see what happens.
You kind of float around when you jump. The jumps make no physical sense.
Yeah.
Like
To be honest,
your weapon doesn't really extrude too far from your body. I don't think they added. I'm thinking that they actually didn't add an additional part to the sprite to make like the weapon stick out, so you can actually hit things without colliding with them.
to be honest, I think you're more likely to die in this game from like having your arbitrary food and water meters run out than you are from dying in
Oh
combat.
yeah.
You're,
Right.
you're on a journey to the west, so you have to have supplies of food and water. And when you go into the buildings, you can collect more food and water sometimes. And then if they run out, as you got 2 bars that constantly drain, if they run out, you just immediately I died, and that's it. You're dead. There's no.
The game is in a way fair, but also in a way cruel because it allows you to keep playing the game, and that it gives you a password, which, by the way, is composed entirely of A's and B's, except that combination AB is input by smashing both A and the B buttons at the same time.
Wow.
So
That's not the best password system.
so technically
around.
it's like a not a binary password system, but a
Binary.
I don't know.
Well, what I like about the passwords, you have to fight a guy to get the passwords too. You have to go into the like a weird city thing, and then you fight a guy, and that's how you get the passwords.
But if you input the password, it'll start you back off, I believe, on that square of the map with full health and everything, so you could keep going.
yeah, there's like
Which
7
is
or 8.
so cruel with this game. Like, really, you want to discourage people from playing it anymore. Like, you've gotten their money. Why torture them any longer? Like,
Speaking
it's
of
too
torturing
late.
any longer,
So I think this game is the right now at the we've got to. I mean, everybody would agree that it belongs somewhere on the bottom of the list. To
I
remind
don't-
our viewers, because we haven't done a truly terrible game in quite a few episodes.
yeah.
So to give an idea about the last games on the list, we're looking at Sewer Shark, Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball, Wall Street Kid, Jones in the Fast Lane, Amagon, Caverns of Kafka for the Commodore 64, Eek the Cat, and at the very, very bottom from episode 11 is Uncanny X-Men or X-Men.
That's almost
because
10 episodes ago that we put a game at the bottom of the list or towards the
we've
bottom.
done a lot of good games lately.
We sure did. Jesus.
We had
Um,
to pay the piper in spades today.
I would definitely say this game's around the same level of quality as Caverns of Kafka.
It is. I mean, I think Caverns of Kafka is the best comparison because that's another game that is so bad it almost becomes interesting in its own right. There's something to be said about a game that does literally everything you could do wrong with a game. It does. Like Caverns of Kafka is like that for action games as this is for like action RPGs. But I have a feeling there's more than one of us who's going to say put it all the way at the bottom underneath X-Men.
Yes.
And
Look,
who else? Who else says?
All right. Well,
I'll work with it.
I think it goes between Eek the Cat and Uncanny X-Men.
That's what I think too. So
What's your
we're-
reasoning for moving up?
Well, who hasn't spoken yet? Because
Well, I mean, lots of us haven't spoken properly.
I don't know if you wanted me to rant first or if
I mean,
you wanted to go.
You want to go because you got the counterpoint, I
there's
believe.
5 of us,
Gladly.
so theoretically we can't tie. I mean, not theoretically, but mathematically we cannot tie.
Oh, shit.
So who would disagree with that?
Well, if it's arguing a losing point, which I think is BS.
Well, we don't know because Cal hasn't said where he'd put it.
Well, we know. I mean, this is a very, very challenging game because you're asking to decide on whether a game that is really terrible, better than or worse than a game that is probably less terrible, but also less interesting, and that is our problem that we are going to face right here specifically. Because
Where do you fall on this continuum? Is it better than Uncanny X-Men simply because it's more uniquely awful, Or is it worse just on the pure like playability and fun thing where no one in their right mind would ever want to play this game?
Well, I played this game for a couple of hours. I gave it my all. I really threw in with this game. I went, all right, let's see how bad this game gets. I wanted to know a little bit about this game in terms of playing it, and I didn't. I didn't completely hate this game entirely. There seems like there's some weird effort put into the actual battles. There is something
there, isn't there? Yeah.
There's like 10 or so different enemy types that have melee attacks and ranged attacks and different AI. Some of them are flying, some of them are not. You've got this weird attack that you actually have to hold the A button down to hit properly. It's weird stuff. And you can turn into a dragon. I guess that's something that the monkey does, I believe. You can press the start button, I think, and you become a dragon. I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, there feels like they were like, all right, well, we're going to actually... it feels less by the numbers and more like, let's try as best as... We can't make games. We're bad at making games. We don't know how to make games. We've never done it before. But we got ideas, and we're going to... and this is what they got. And I do like that you want to see where this one goes. You're like, is it going to get worse? Are they going to pull out more stops? Because there are things that it does. You do eventually get boss fights. There are 3 boss fights in this game. You'll never get to one unless you really... 2 of them are the
exact same, I should...
Yeah, but then you fight like clones of yourself, and there's a giant guy that just stands and you have to hit him in the head. And it's weird, and you don't quite know what it's going to throw at you, and of course the ending is garbage. But it's still kind of more interesting, I think. So I would, if you're going to say like purely which is... I would rather have played this game than X-Men. To try, not to have to play
agree.
Forever.
That is my sentiment exactly. So, and I'll back this up by just saying that it's simple. Like, Super Monkey Daibouken kind of compels you to keep playing just to see how much worse it can get, whereas X-Men tells you exactly how bad it is, and it never gets worse. It just starts out being unplayably terrible. And that's it. Like, there's no, like, deliciously crappy thing at the end waiting for you. No, it's just the same turd sandwich from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bad and boring and terrible and generic disappointment of a game. That's it. Like, you can't... Whereas, at least with Super Monkey Daibouken, like, for all of its faults, it is kind of like a perfect storm of wretchedness.
I have a counter argument.
Yeah,
please
they're both
proceed.
terrible games. Let's not kid ourselves there. But
nobody
at
is.
least X-Men is a bit more straightforward. It's just a bad action game with a weird progression mechanic. I don't even know how to describe or explain what you're supposed to do in SMD.
But to me, that makes it better because if you grab a list of
better
games,
ever described in the context of this piece of shit.
No, let's hear him out.
All right,
like
fine.
if you've got X-Men, as Xerxes was just saying, like you go, all right, I know what this is. This is this game, but 1,000 times worse. And there's probably like 100 or so NES games which are like, well, this is basically X-Men but better. Like it's just like we would never touch X-Men because it's just so far down the list that you have to go through like every game in the NES library.
Oh yeah, I mean, another thing about X-Men is it also is playing off of a very desirable and attractive license, which is like, oh my god, I want to play X-Men. I love the X-Men. They have mutant powers, and oh my god, this is terrible. What is this? Nightcrawler, what are you doing? Don't do. Oh, you're dead. Oh. You know what I mean? Like, it's a child disappointment, like HR. Like, it just...
I can't imagine, like, I don't know how it went in Japan, but I don't think anyone would pick up the freaking Super Monkey Daibouken and be like, this is going to be such a great game. I'm going to love playing as the monkey and the kappa and I think it's a dragon.
I think a lot of people must have bought it and played it because they didn't rent games back then. And a lot of people remember this game, which means a lot of people played it. I don't think it was like an internet phenomenon. I think it was famous even before that. I can't prove it, and I'm not going to try, but take my word for it because I am a voice on the internet.
I do think, like, as I said, like, as you play it, it's got like something. There is a mild, compelling element to see. Okay, but what is it going to do something?
Like
you're just
what it
waiting
reminds
to see
me of is kind of like the sinister, dark, evil, twisted cousin of like something like Legacy of the Wizard, where there's this huge map to explore, except that whereas Legacy of the Wizard like rewards you at least visually with every different area you travel to, this game disappoints you in a new and interesting way. But it is kind of cool if they had this whole map set up. And it is, when you look at it, like just looking at a map of the game's world is pretty interesting.
I really painfully disagree with you guys. I don't think shit should be lauded for being shit. You wouldn't give a bad president awards for ruining the economy, would you? It's just... I don't know. I'm not fond of ironic shit cults. I mean, memorable though this game is in a bad way, I just... It's just sloppy overall.
It's more like, imagine that, okay, so crappy game properties or characteristics are like separate lions that make up Voltron, right? So if none of the lions combine into anything meaningful or interesting, you've got a worthless pile of robo-lions, right? They don't do anything. But this is a gestalt of garbage NES game design that combines to become something both crappier than its separate parts, but also more interesting than its separate parts. That's what I think we came to.
Okay, look, I'll just say this. While I will forever disagree with you guys in this opinion, I don't think that we're going to get nearly as much flack for placing this one slightly higher than it should be, as we did for placing Riven way lower than it should have been. So
yeah, we should have put Riven lower. You're right.
Oh,
it's true. Is it too late to move Riven below?
Fuck you.
Okay, here's my actual
piss off.
If you were to ignore everything else about X-Men and Super Monkey Daibouken, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I would take Super Monkey Daibouken's music over X-Men's. I think it's not terrible.
I'll give you that overhead
That's
theme.
That's ultimately why I put it above.
Almost the only thing you'll be hearing all the time, but it's not bad. It's calming. I'll give it that.
I mean, that might be the only thing that puts it in front is just that you have to walk forever, but the music that you walk forever to isn't actually ear-shatteringly bad.
Right, yeah. There's something contemplative about like the... Like walking,
it's kind of mimicking a nice flute, and it's got a very bluesy kind of feel to it. Whereas like the X-Men music is just total fart bad.
It sounds like it sounds like you've like haven't plugged in your subwoofer all the way, and it's just like this weird low rumble always going on in the background of X-Men.
Okay.
It's really painful.
Alright, just the final word here. I guess it's going above X-Men then, as much as I'm not really fond of that decision, but whatever. It's been decided on, it is what it is, but let it be known that as much as we've talked up this game, it is still really, really, really bad, and I don't recommend anyone ever play it ever. So,
but if you have to choose between X-Men and Super Monkey Daibouken...
But you don't. There are so many, many more games on the NES that you never have to, unless someone's putting a gun to your head.
In like a Saw 3-esque scenario, Saw 3 in particular, choose Super Monkey Daibouken, you will die a slightly more enlightened person.